Here's the thing. There's not a foregone conclusion that they're the best quarterbacks in the SEC.
Right. Lenore Sellers, it very well could take that standing. Austin Simmons, we've talked about, is somebody who we haven't even seen. We don't even know.
I mean,
Lagway as well.
Joe, I mean, Marcel Reed, people are sleeping on Marcel Reed. And, oh, by the way, what happens at Bama?
Right. There's always that shot that Ty Simpson, if he starts for how long he's had to incubate, that he might end up stepping onto the scene and being tremendous. There's a lot of overall uncertainty, but I do think it is fair to look at Nuss and to look at Arch and to wonder which of those two guys ends up having the best chance to stand amongst them. I will say this, Arch at the very least, I think, is the highest floor of any of the quarterbacks in the conference compared to Nussmeier, that if he has a rocky year, he's going to be more middle of the pack. I think Arch is probably still going to be top 4.
Let me ask you a question before we get rolling here. If his name was Arch Smith, would he be getting the push?
I broke down Arch's tape. I am all in on Arch Manning. It has nothing to do with his name.
You didn't answer my question.
It has nothing to do with his name. That is me.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, because if a quarterback went 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions in 2 starts that he had against Mississippi State and ULM, you would not be saying that. There's no way that you would say that. Long. By the way, the other quarterback that did that was Michael Van Buren, who was a freshman. So if we're gonna do that, then.
But I'm not evaluating and making the decision based on their stats. Nuss has started a shitload more games.
I'm not talking about Nuss. What I'm saying here is, if we're putting him before his first real season of starting, and I'm asking, if his name wasn't Arch Manning, would you put DJ Lagway, Garrett Nussmeier? And by the way, I got to throw this out there. Would you put Taylon Green ahead of him?
No, I would not. I watched Arch in his games, and I had the same thought of, like, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions until he actually plays more games. And I was so blown away by some of the things that he did with such little experience. Not talking about him stepping into being a junior and being a sophomore last year. Forget that for a second. He hasn't played. He's gotten on the field. He's stepped in spurts. He's had a couple of starts for when Quinn Ewers was hurt. The things that he's able to do and that he flashed is special. It is. Like, the instincts are the big key separation for me. So no, his name has nothing to do with it. And if anything, I should argue his name does factor into the fact that he's been around football for so damn long, and he's got Peyton Manning and Eli Manning to turn to whenever he needs advice. He looks like a pro.
And Eli also had their dad.
But that's my whole point, is that it's
still struggled as year 1 starters.
I think that Arch is different. I really do.
Okay. I'm telling you right now, you would not put him above some of these other guys if he wasn't Arch Manning.
I'm telling you right now that I wouldn't. I watched his tape. I broke down his tape, and I wanted to, going into that.
So there's 2 games versus some guys that have 4 games.
But I'm not sitting here just going off of, like, hey, I watched him on TV. Oh, his name's Arch Manning.
There's 2 games for ULM and Mississippi State.
I'm not saying that those games, and nor am I framing that he's going to win the Heisman. I am not saying that he is going to be the first overall pick. I don't think he's going to declare. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that you could see the flashes of a guy that is an incredibly natural decision maker, that has incredibly natural touch, timing, all of those things. And Garrett Nussmeier and other quarterbacks in the conference struggle with a lot of those things.
Joe, he threw 2 picks versus ULM. So, no.
I'm not going off of the stats.
Joe, okay.
I'm telling you what I saw and evaluated.
Okay, well, then don't go based off the stats. The film still says he threw the 2 picks that you must have not watched him. There comes a point.
I did watch those.
Okay, so then there comes a point in time. What I'm saying is that you're saying he's not X, Y, and Z. Well, then you're saying he is by saying that I think he's better than Garrett, or I think he's better than these other quarterbacks. So you are putting him the number 1 quarterback in the SEC.
I think that there's a very strong chance that he finishes the conference as the best quarterback in the conference. I don't think that's unreasonable.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that there's a lot more questions than people are willing to give answers for at the current moment.
What we're already talking about this. Do you want to just keep talking?
Sure.
Continue this segment?
Fine. So just for clarification, Brian Kelly went on the Game Day podcast with Pete Thamel and with Reese Davis.
Yep.
In that, Pete Thamel made a joke and said, Coach, Reese is taking Arch Manning as the SEC quarterback one who's going to win first-team SEC quarterback. And BK just said, well, listen, I like Garrett because he has experience, and I think every young quarterback across the country and a first-time starter goes through and needs experience and goes through tough times. He never said that he thought Garrett was better than Arch. He said, I'm taking my guy. What else do you want to say? Which then on 3 pushed it saying that Brian Kelly said some form of comment that was not true. I listened to it. Go listen to it for yourself. He didn't say shit. He just said, I'm taking my guy. And a joke that was made by Pete Thamel and Reese Davis. What is he supposed to say? But it does spark the debate. Is Arch Manning the best quarterback? Even if you want to throw Garrett Nussmeier in there, is he the best quarterback in the SEC today?
Not today. Not today. I think that would be reckless to say that the current moment.
All right, well, then is he better than Garrett Nussmeier? I guess essentially is what's going on here.
I was more looking at this at by the end of the season, who do we think is going to be the better player? Because there's not enough evidence of Arch Manning at the current moment to say before the season starts, before week 1, is Arch Manning or Nussmeier better? We don't have anything to go off of. I am not going to use a small sample size as a driving force for where they stand right now before a game has been played. But if we're talking just general projection, and this is what my whole argument is when I'm talking about Arch. When we watch quarterbacks, my biggest emphasis is natural playmaking. It's just a natural feel for playing the position, a natural feel for pressure, a willingness to be aggressive and to trust your tools that you have to make big plays. Arch Manning did have turnovers in the games that he started. He did. He was trying to do a little too much on those plays. He was taking a little bit too much of a risk. He didn't see the traffic that was developing in front of him. I think just for the general, I'm not comparing him to Nussmeier right this second. I think that if Arch steps up the way that he can with the receivers that he has around him, with the offensive line, even though they lost a couple of guys, still well recruited, blocking in front of him, I think he can finish. It is not hyperbolic to say that he can finish the year as the number 1 quarterback in the conference. He is that gifted. He is that natural. Natural is the key word that I'm coming with here. There have been so few quarterbacks that I have evaluated as a draft analyst that I have felt that this guy is incredibly natural. So that's what I'm sticking to.
That doesn't make him better right now.
I know. I'm not saying it does.
Natural, but I'm not saying that to you. I'm just saying being natural and being better than some of these other. You know who else is very natural? DJ Lagway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that DJ Lagway is going to be right there next to him.
The point being is that this conversation with me, with Arch Manning at the current moment, I think we all can agree that we think, based off of what we've seen in the past, that we're anticipating to do what we've seen in the past with his uncles, right? Like that's what we're anticipating. What I am saying, or what I was saying earlier to you, is the way that I feel. I watched him in high school. I went to 7 of his games living here in Louisiana. I came in on here on this show saying, look, he's got to go into college and get bigger. He's got to get stronger. Joe, he had to. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is right now, in my humble opinion, people are putting him above some other quarterbacks that you said that we have not seen Arch. We have seen Arch in a 2-game sample size against the 2 worst teams on their schedule. And he did not perform the way that everybody thought that he would. He had a really long run. He had some really good throws. Against Mississippi State, he had some really good throws. But, Joe, here's the problem. In that first half, go back and watch it. I double dog dare everybody to go back and watch it. That first half, they could not separate. He was making young freshman mistakes, young first-time starter mistakes. And that's why that game was 14-10 at halftime. He made a ridiculous throw down the sideline, and then he made a ridiculous throw in the third quarter that plated them to be able, because they're just more talented, and he's more talented. There just comes a part with me. I do feel like that if his name was Arch Smith instead of Arch Manning, that people would have him in the middle of the pack, as they do every 5-star recruit that comes in at quarterback in any conference. He's not more talented than some of these other guys that we've seen. Now, not from a skill point level. Like, for example, I think of like when Jaden Daniels came back for in his first year, and people had him as one of the worst quarterbacks in the country. What did that dictate for you then? Like, I that's the problem that I have. Here's the thing for this season alone, and when I say this, I mean this season alone. I think that he is going to have absolutely ridiculous throws. I think he's going to have high caliber NFL decisions, throws, and quite honestly, athleticism. I also think he's going to have some very big boneheaded decisions that plagues his team, like every first-time starter does. And I don't think that anybody can say with some of the guys that are coming back into the SEC and have experience. Joe, I don't know if this year he's better than John Mateer because of experience. Garrett Nussmeier. What does DJ Lagway look like? Listen, the biggest slept-on quarterback, and you're going to call me a fool right now, but I'll put money in the bank that he takes a massive step in year 2 in Arkansas. It's Taylor Green because of his athleticism. Okay. I don't think that I think because he's being put on a pedestal that other guys haven't. Again, can he be the best quarterback in the SEC? Yes, he can be. But I think that we're taking one massive thing out of the equation, and that is being a starter and experience that does matter at that position.
This is my whole deal with Arch. I think that you name a lot. We can sit here and name a lot of guys. This is surprisingly, after last year was underwhelming with the quarterback performances that we had in the conference. This is going to be a great year in the SEC for quarterback play because there's a lot of tools. There's a lot of guys that could end up vaulting themselves into, first round, second round conversations for the upcoming draft and just being some of the best quarterbacks in the country. I am typically very unwilling to commit anything to a player unless I get enough of a sample size. I understand that the games that he started were weak games on Texas's schedule. I understand that there were some drives and some throws that weren't great. But if from such a small sample size, Blake, if I feel like I was that blown away, had nothing to do with his name. I'm going to keep repeating that. Has nothing to do with his name for me. Most importantly, when I went into watching Arch, I didn't even want to watch him for the 2026 draft. I didn't even want to touch him. But I was talking with other people whose opinions I respect that said, look, I thought the same thing. You need to go watch him. I didn't have any expectation of there being anything worth a damn in his film. And after I watched it, I was completely blown away from an actual evaluations perspective. Not from what were his stats, how many interceptions did he throw, none of that stuff. Seeing the full field, seeing his reads, seeing where he's placing the ball, the accuracy that he played with without having any in-game reps on some of the throws that he was able to place the ball is unreal.
Yeah,
that's why I'm hyping him up.
Against ULM and a 2-win Mississippi State, or 4-win Mississippi State team.
I'm not. I understand that he didn't step in.
You should be hyping out
Georgia
DJ
and make that.
Well, then,
I have hyped up DJ Lagway. Okay. I love DJ Lagway. I think DJ Lagway are going to finish as the top 2 quarterbacks in the conference. I think that those 2 guys over anybody else, because we've seen other guys play enough, and they've all been shaky and up and down. Taylor Green's been inconsistent. Garrett Nussmeier's been inconsistent. John Mateer
with all due respect, you can't say that those guys have been inconsistent, and then you have film on ULM and you have film on Mississippi State and say there wasn't inconsistencies. There's no way.
But I have much larger sample sizes of those guys playing and making the same mistakes over and over again. Especially Garrett Nussmeier. Garrett Nussmeier consistently makes a lot. He still makes a lot of the. He's been around for a while, but he still makes a lot of the same mistakes over and over again.
They ran the same route against ULM. He threw the same ball that got picked twice. Joe,
that wasn't. I don't think that was the same concept that got picked.
Inside fade route.
I don't recall it being. I don't remember off the top of my head what the play was, but I don't remember.
Maybe it wasn't the second one, but one of them was an inside fade route that he massively underthrew. Listen, I think the kid's going to be special. To say that he is going to be better when you have not seen him on the field but twice in certain situations against the 2 lower teams, he's going to have freshman mistakes.
He's a junior. I don't think that.
Okay, let me not make him freshman mistakes. He's going to have first-time starter mistakes. If he doesn't, then guess what? He's better than both of his uncles. Are you ready to go there?
I think it's certainly plausible that he could.
Get
He's more athletic. He's more athletic than Peyton and Eli. He's more athletic than a lot of the quarterbacks that we're sitting here naming and talking.
Bro, regardless of what his name is, you're talking about arguably one of the top 2 quarterbacks that we've seen in the last 50 years in Peyton Manning.
He's definitely better than Eli, and I think that he can be on par with Peyton. He's a better athlete than Peyton.
I do think he's better than Eli, but hold on 1 second. Before we get out of here, don't you dare disrespect Eli like that after I went and watched his highlights last night, and I will show you on my YouTube channel. Playoff Eli was elite.
I'm a Giants fan.
Playoff Eli was elite.
He was, but he was also one of the most frustrating headaches